I'd like to speak some more, if you would, about Donald Trump.
Well, I said recently that if the American people voted for Trump, he could take them into the abyss of hell. He's free, he's rich, he hates political correctness, and rightly so. But he said some things that I would hope that he would get around him persons who could help him, because as a businessman par excellence, he has people around him to help him do business. But if he says, let's go in to Iraq and take the oil, that puts him in the class of those neoconservatives who had a project for a new American century. And they wrote to Bill Clinton and Trent Lott, and they talked about attacking Iraq and taking out Saddam Hussein, not just because he may be in their eyes a dictator and was once on the payroll of the CIA in the war against Iran and Ayatollah Khomeini, but he had become a thorn in their sides, and they wanted to get rid of him.
He kind of become a Trump. He was doing his own thing.
Yes.
That was his crime.
And that is the crime of those who refuse to come under the control of the IMF or the World Bank, who send these people like Mr. Perkins in his book, The Tales of an Economic Hitman, who would go into a small country and tell them how they could improve this and that, but they would have to borrow money. When I was in Nigeria, President Abacha told me that they came to him and offered him billions of dollars to loan. And Mr. Abacha said, I don't need your money because the oil that we have is sufficient to get us to do all the good things that we want to do. Well, a few years later, he's dead. Well, now here, Mr. Trump, if he would look at this project for an American century, and I'm sure you have read their writings where they appeal to Bill Clinton to get rid of Saddam as part of America's foreign policy. He didn't go along with it. And those members of the new American century now got into the inside of government under the Bush administration. And General Wesley Clark, he said he was introduced to a memo in, I think it was 2001, a memo that came from the neoconservatives that they wanted regime change in 7 Islamic countries in 5 years' time. And it started with Iraq and Saddam Hussein, then Syria and Bashar al-Assad, then Lebanon, then Sudan, then Iran, and then Libya. All of those countries now are boiling with internal strife.
And it's a conspiracy, a public one of PNAC, to go in, destabilize, put radicals in, kill the non-radicals, go after the Christians, all of this to then foment a collapse, flood Europe with all these refugees. Some of them will end up being attackers, and then you get an even bigger war on Islam. It's all part of that master plan. You're absolutely right. Trump contradicts himself, and I don't think through being ungenuine, He says, don't go into Iraq. It's a bad idea. But then he says, but let's do what the neocons say and take the oil. I mean, not putting words in your mouth, Minister Farrakhan, but are you saying you're attracted to the fact that he is a maverick and that he says what he's really thinking, but at the same time, you're saying he needs to get the bigger picture to understand what's going on?
If he goes into Iraq and takes the oil, that's a kind of a thuggish mentality. America has the power to do these things, but it will not bring the results that America desires. Bush and the neocons, when they went into Iraq, I warned President Bush that what you are doing and the way you are doing it, you will increase terrorism, you will not diminish it. It proved, my words to him proved correct, and I warned him that the coalition would fall apart from him and he would ultimately have to go it alone. Now here is our president. Now I'm talking about Barack Obama, because the job that President Bush started was not finished. So in comes Obama, and when he was campaigning, he was a new and fresh and beautiful idea, but when he gets into office, he becomes the extension of the policies of the neoconservatives. They surrounded Bush, they surrounded Barack Obama, and now just 2 weeks ago in Washington, there was all of these people who are behind the drones. And they were saying that in these drones that go out to kill people that America feels are a threat to their policies, none of that happens without Barack Obama's signature. So you took a man, we gave you the best that we had, but you took him, you gave him the Peace Prize, and then the neocons and that shadow government begins to guide the policies of America. And now here's what we have. Now, I'm going to come back to Mr. Trump in a minute. Hillary Clinton was the biggest advocate for the destruction of Libya and Muammar Gaddafi. Gaddafi was my friend. I know him as a revolutionary. He was against America's foreign policy objectives, and he stood out. That man died, but he led his country. They had no debt. There's no country on earth that doesn't have debt, but Libya didn't have debt. Libya gave some of the oil money back to all the citizens. Libya armed the whole country and had depots where if anything happened, they could go and get arms. A man who is a despot does not arm his people that they can be manipulated to come against him. But the moment he gave up his weapons of mass destruction to come in out of the cold, who came to Libya? It was Richard Pearl, who was the great
Prince of Darkness.
Prince of Darkness. And where did he go? He went directly to Benghazi, because it was from Benghazi that Gaddafi overthrew the king. He's from that area of the world. So now they never did like Gaddafi, so they started stimulating the upset, the unrest, the dissatisfaction. And I don't care how good any leader is, there's always dissatisfaction in every house.
Well, absolutely. But
And our government has gone into nations with money from our Congress to stimulate the dissatisfied and then arm them against a government that is their government. That's what America did in Libya. That's what they're doing in Syria. And the blowback now is they have created a refugee crisis that is destabilizing the countries in Europe. So when Mr. Trump said, we can't allow these Muslims, refugees, into America. Now, a lot of people were upset with him, but I know, sir, that the hatred for America in the Muslim world is building. As we told Mr. Bush, no Muslim leader could call for jihad and have it stick. No Muslim leader had the power to unite the whole Muslim world. I said, but America's policies will unite those people against the West, and it is happening. So in this way, Mr. Trump, I think, is wise to vet anyone coming from that area into America, because the hatred for America is in the streets now. So if those people are refugees and America feels I gotta let 10,000 of them in because America created the problem. Now, if you let them in and you don't vet them carefully, you might be letting in your own destruction. I'll close that, Mr. Jones, with scripture. In the book of Revelations, it talks about Babylon falling. Ancient Babylon we know, but there's a mystery Babylon that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says represents America and her dominance in the world.
And it falls in 1 hour.
I'm sorry?
Falls in 1 hour, doesn't it?
Yes. Now here we have Babylon falling. Mr. Trump says, I want to make America great again. The American people know that something is wrong because the country is not what it once was, doesn't have the influence that it once had. And even though militarily it is the strongest nation on the earth, it's $19 trillion in debt. It can never pay that debt. So 57% of the budget goes to produce more and more weapons, because that's the only way America can threaten China, who America has borrowed trillions of dollars from. If China calls the debt, what happens to America and the dollar? The dollar is weak, as you know, and it started with the loss of the congressional mandate in the Constitution to mint the money. There's so much conspiracy that we could be here all day, but I'll close with this, sir. Babylon is fallen, it says, and has become a habitation of devils and a hole for every wicked spirit, and a cage for every unclean and hateful bird. My teacher said, Babylon is America, and the devil means that all of us are in rebellion against the divine laws of God. Whatever God said thou shalt not do, in America, you're free to do it. So whether we like the appellation devil or not, we are in rebellion against God.